Dr. Jefferson, we are live. Are you ready to kick this thing off, brother?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
KTTV, giving you what you need. Motivation, education unleashed. H-Town representing, we forever keep it rolling. Join the conversation with inspirational stories. Thought-provoking, feel that energy. Kendrick Thomas aiming to lift the community. True indeed, tune in, come and see. Giving you what you need. KTTV, let's go. KTTV.
Oh, what to do, KTTV? This is KT, and I'm here with the first welcome back Carter episode of Education Unleashed. I went off and did a few things, y'all, so I had to come back in the game. And so now that I'm back, I got a few friends with me. And so on tonight's episode, I got my frat brother, my big brother, my education brother, Dr. Patrick Jefferson in there.
Good evening, my friend. How are you this evening?
Dr. Jefferson, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. But more importantly, man, who did your intro, man? That song was fire.
Look, man, I ain't gonna lie to you. I went on, what was that, Fiverr? Went on Fiverr, man. Had to interview a few people for that thing, man. Brother finally came through.
Was good.
Hey, man, the boy say, man, well, give me something about you. So then I sent him some things, and he came back. I want to say that was the first take. We didn't even have to go back and change nothing, man.
All right.
So a lot of work. But I will tell him I'm gonna have to get one for that Bros Talk. So we go, oh my God, it's about to get crazy. So now, other than that, man, before we jump into tonight, especially as we end this year, I know that there has been a lot going. So I would say, man, how have you been throughout this year? And how are the holidays holding up for you as we slide into Christmas and New Year?
You know what? It's actually 2025 has been a good year. And I always try to take a mindset to be thankful, to look at our good fortunes. I mean, there's going to be cloudy days and rainy days, but there are more sunshiny days than anything. So I'm always thankful for the opportunities. And we have, as individuals, we have to look at stuff, longitudinal. And for us as African-American men, historical. I mean, I'm doing better than my grandparents would ever imagine me being able to do, and opportunities I have for myself and my family. So I'm doing great in 2025. Looking forward to 2026.
Yes, sir. On when it up from here is what they say.
Yes, sir.
Now, before we jump into things, everybody know me. Y'all know I'm K-12 education, A-Leaf-ISD. Y'all know the story. But give us a little bit of information about you, because one of the big things I love about doing this show is I get to pick the people that talks to us. And so I like to find people who are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, man. So give us a little bit of background on yourself.
A little bit of background. Born and raised in Houston, north side of Houston, Acres Home in Greenspoint. Grew up what's not known as, a modest upbringing. Was very fortunate to, as rough as I made it for myself, and very fortunate to land on the campus of Xavier University of Louisiana in New Orleans, Louisiana, which I'd say really changed my life and helped give me purpose and some drive and helped me start moving with purpose. Left college, came back home. All my friends, close relatives were still kind of doing the same things they were doing when I left. So I ended up moving to Los Angeles, stayed out there almost 20 years, got into education, not because I was a forward thinker and planner, just because, I needed a job and somebody said, hey, they already need substitute teachers. And so I went and subbed for, it's funny. I went on a Monday, and I'm old enough to have had to go in and get paper applications and drop them off. I don't know how. Remember, so I didn't date it myself. Wasn't no online applications. So I went into the Compton Unified School District in Compton, California. Got an application on the Monday. I dropped it off on Tuesday. They called me on Wednesday to come in for an interview on Thursday. They called me Thursday evening and say, come fill out your paperwork on Friday morning. And I was in a classroom the next Monday morning as a sub for 3 days. After the third day, I guess they figured I didn't teaching biology and chemistry. They figured I didn't burn down the classroom. They asked me if I wanted to be a long-term sub for a month. Did that for a month. Then I had a permanent teaching position. Poor kids, because I had no training, no anything. I just had a book and some keys. But I fell in love with education at that point. Did the K-12, did coaching football for a little bit. Ended up moving to higher education, the community college level, which I spent the majority of my career in California. Moved from a program director all the way up to the executive vice president of student learning, where I had responsibility for both education affairs and student affairs. I worked on both sides of the house, education affairs and student services. Moved back to Houston, and probably about around end of 2015, went to 4-year education, went to UH downtown for a short stint, and then at Prairie View A&M University. Now I'm at Baylor College of Medicine for my full-time job. Also, I'm a part-time methodologist and dissertation chair for Grand Canyon University. The board chair for Elevate Collegiate Charter School, which serves the historic third ward community, which we're having a gala and fundraising gala in January, which I'll share some information with you as well. And I'm a member of the greatest fraternity in the land, the Alpha Mu chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So I'm a proud member there. So that's a little bit about me and what I do. And I try to do as much community service as possible.
Most definitely, man. I appreciate that, Doc. So for me, as we're having those conversations and we were getting prepped for tonight, this season is really intentional, right? Because my book, wait a minute, let me go. Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Shameless plug. Put it up there. It's a little blurry. We can't see it. There we go. Now it's in focus.
A princess releasing my word. So if y'all did not see that book, it is all about just identifying or unveiling the hidden battles faced with minority boys in education. And so lo and behold, Dr. Jefferson say, look, man, why don't we put something together that really digs deep into Black boys, supporting Black boys? And so this season is intentional. And I will put that disclaimer, we're not here to fix kids. I just want to examine some of the systems, which is what I talked about in the book. A lot of what happens if this is in your classroom? What do you do? How do you see it? And then what do you do to change it? And so tonight's episode is called The Dangerous Misdiagnosis of Defiant Boys. Because too often Black and brown boys, in my opinion, are labeled defiant before they are ever understood. You know, a lot of the times when I come up to a kid and he's in crisis, I don't say, what's wrong with you? What's going on? I ask him, what do you need right now? And sometimes that just breaks down all of that tension between me and that young man. And then that's how I start to move them from crisis. Because when we misdiagnose that behavior, we don't just get the discipline wrong. I feel a lot of the times we get the outcomes wrong. And so, Doc, before we get into this matter, I would ask, why was this topic so important to you when you came up with the idea of let's put this together?
Well, I mean, from the time I entered education, as I mentioned before, after during my first semester of teaching K-12, I ended up getting asked to be a football coach. And so I spent a lot of time with my young men doing a JV team. I went to another high school, ended up being the head football coach for the school. So all of my time around young men. When I went to the community college level, I put together a lot of program services for young men, particularly young men of color, particularly for African-American, unapologetically African-American young men and boys at that level. Did some programs, won some awards for that. Same thing at the 4-year level. So I've always been intentional with trying to look at what we can do to raise the education outcomes for Black boys and young men. Because the central question that I always ask, and every time I do a talk about this, I say, okay, is it that our young boys can't learn? Is it that our young boys aren't as smart as anybody else? Is our boys are just more defiant than anybody else? Is it our boys the problem? And every one of us needs to ask that question. And it's a yes or no question. Are our young boys, is something wrong with us? And I say us because we're older men now, but that is, we're part of that continuum. Is something wrong with us? And if we say no, which I contend the answer is heck no, then what is the problem? We need to look at, if it's not this boy or this young man, what is the problem? And it's a systemic thing. There's several answers to that. And then if it's not this boy or this young man, then we have to start looking at things around this boy, this young man. And I think quite often that's what we do not do. We do not look for what's around, what's going on, what else is happening. So this is a topic that's always near and dear to my heart. This is something that I'm going to spend. I spend a considerable amount of my professional and personal time looking into, and it's something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my natural life.
Most definitely. I posted something last week, and it says, when a flower doesn't bloom, you don't change the flower, but you change the environment around that flower. Yeah. And so that's why this is so important to me. And like you say, it's not necessarily talking about the kids, but we're talking about the systems that are in place, because we are no different than Timmy across the way. But what do we have to work with? And so definitely what it is. And so tonight we'll go through a few systems. We'll go through a few segments, that we'll just kind of add in, because I want that data to match. And so coming up, our first segment. All right, so in the temperature check, I want to start with the language that we hear inside of schools. And so for me, I'm K through 12, so I'm still hearing he's defiant, he's angry, he doesn't want to comply. And so these labels, they follow Black boys at disproportionate rates. But what gets missed is often that the anger is the interpretation and not the emotion. And so for me, Doc, I know that you had some research on this where we're talking about like the stress response, the adultification, because my question was for me, when adults label these boys as defiant, what are they usually misreading? And so for me, I say it's most of the time the interpretation of their young man. But can you give us a little bit of that information that you had on adultification?
Well, I mean, I think, and I want to define this for our audience, it's quite often Black boys and young men are perceived to be older than they are. And so when they're perceived to be older and more dangerous than they are, and then by natural extension, the consequence for their behavior is is at a level that's for an older, more dangerous boy or young man. And so that's what it is. Our young men are seen as older and more dangerous at a very early age. And even to preschool, at the preschool level, our young men start this track of discipline and harsh consequences as young as 3, 4, or 5 years old. Our young boys make up about 45% of young boys that are expelled from preschool. They make up about 19% of preschool population, but are about 45% of the expulsions from preschool. So it starts very, very early. So where other young men of their age that do and I want to make this clear, that exhibit the exact same behavior, the consequences for our young men are much harsher for doing the exact same thing, because while it may seem that another young man may say, oh, he's just being a little kid or he's just being rambunctious, it's for us, he's been defiant, he's been dangerous, he's been aggressive and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And that just goes to say one of the laws in K-12 this year. So I've been at the alternative school this will be my 3rd year. When I first got there, the district removed K through 2 because it wasn't anything that was forcing them to come. So K through 2, you're not going to come anymore. We figure out how to support those students on the campus. As of the new law change, now K through 2 gets to come back to the alternative school when they've done an infraction. And so just as you stated with those stats, of course, we in A-League, so we don't have a lot of Caucasian kids, which means a lot of these boys that's coming are Black and brown boys, which is still counted in that number. But it's like, what could I have been doing this year that I wasn't doing the last 2 years when y'all weren't allowed to send me there, right?
Okay, so I want to stop you real quick. You say K through 2. That means a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 7-year-old. These are babies that are being sent to an alternative school. What is a kindergartner doing, a 1st grader doing, a 2nd grader doing that warrants that level of attention? I mean, there are always some extreme cases, but by and large, These are 5, 6, and 7-year-olds.
Yes, trust me. Trust me. I know. We talking kindergarten. I want to say we got maybe 2 kindergarten students.
Yeah.
Young boys. And so it's just like what happened? Like what happened inside of their school? And so, yeah. And then what happens and what I get so worried about is even at that early age, they aren't responding to school anymore. They're almost responding to how the school sees them. I mean, and so then that's when
makes sense. If it's a hostile environment, you protect yourself against a hostile environment. That's a natural response. Yeah. If you see this as hostile, if you see the people there that when I walk up to the front door, they look at me a certain way, they talk at me a certain way, they behave a certain way towards me, and you can tell even at that young age, he doesn't talk to him like that, he doesn't talk to him like that, he doesn't talk to her like that, but he talks to me like that. Then your natural response is to protect yourself from that. And that's where I think a lot of label of defiance comes from.
Yeah. And then, like you say, self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm gonna give you what you want.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you what you want. Keep on. All right. So I think that is good for that. Now, I want to jump into a little bit of myth versus the method. Hey, Doc.
I want to. So I want to go back before we move into the next step. I got one last thing because you mentioned what that label is like of defiant at the K-12 level. I've spent most of my career in higher education, and so that continues on. It goes from defiant to dangerous, and not necessarily labeling them, but on the other side, how those people interact with them label how our young boys and young men making them feel. So it goes beyond he's defiant to rather I'm frightened, he scares me, they scare me. And so it's a continuum of labeling, but now it's kind of weaponized to like, oh, it makes me feel a certain way. And very, very quickly, I want to tell a quick story that I had to deal with one institution I was at. That kind of symbolizes this. So I had a professor, and she came to one of my dean's offices and wanted to make a report against a young man. He happened to be a football player. That, of intimidation and scaring her, and she, doesn't want to be in the class anymore, and all this kind of stuff. She was hysterical. So, of course, we did an investigation and got her story. And he said, she was in her office hours. The young man came with a friend of his, another African-American young man, football player, big guy. And he said, well, the one guy stood at the door so I couldn't leave. And the other guy came in and he really tried to intimidate me. And I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I just sat there and talked to them. And we asked, okay, so what exactly happened? We talked to young men as well. I said, what is that? Well, he had all these questions about his grade and if he can get extra credit or something like that. Did he raise his voice? No, he didn't raise his voice. He talked really low. Did he threaten you? No, he didn't threaten me, but I was really scared. Exactly what happened next? Well, once I told him what he can do, he ended up leaving the classroom. They left. And she was shaking like a leaf, terrified. Now let's look at this from another angle that we kind of deduced after that, me and my dean staff. The young man, it was near midterms. He needed some extra credit just to kind of bring up his midterm grade. Him and his friend stopped by his faculty members' office hours. It wasn't his class, so the friend stayed by the front door while he went in. The young man went in, asked about some extra credit, had a quick conversation, left. The entire interaction was about 5 to 7 minutes. Both the young man and the professor said. He said thank you and left. But she was scared to death. She was shaking like a leaf that they came and tried to intimidate her. So that's the example of how this translates from K-12 being defiant, being labeled, to higher education, where it becomes very dangerous for our young men quite often. So I kind of want to put that out there and kind of spread.
Man, that was dangerous, man. Like, I mean, because you all did the research, you all did the investigation. Sometimes it's not an investigation.
Yeah, well, and at the time, the only African-American administrator and a senior administrator at the institution could sit and listen to the story and intervene What if I hadn't been there? What if somebody else would have been there that did not have an understanding that could kind of pull these boys in and say, okay, what happened? And somebody would have just took her word for it and her tears, because tears can be dangerous, and just took that and acted based on that.
Mm. Well, it happens also so often. That's the sad part about it. You know,
Yes,
we miss a lot of it.
I'm sorry, I derailed your segment. I'm sorry.
No, man, that is this is the conversation, right? And so when we have those pieces, the segment is just to keep us on track, and keep the conversation moving. But when we got to stop and slow that train down for something good, by all means, because that soundbite in itself is important because that happens. It happens a lot, right? We talking K-12 education. I have to be that voice and go in and do these background and investigation and find out really what happened and his statements involved. Because if I don't, a lot of the times, I'm going to say, look, if I don't know or I'm not there to do that investigation, what happens to this boy, right?
Yes.
How far will it goes, you know? And so I've seen kids who've been to alternative school because that investigation was not done. And so that's what we get. But jumping back into it, myth versus the method. So I want to name the myths. Black boys are angry for no reason. Another one is defiance equals disrespect. And that's a big one. Defiance is disrespect. Once again, you don't take the time to know me. We have no relationship. That's what you believe. I'm 14. You already labeled me as a 17-year-old just because. And we talked about that earlier. But these myths don't help kids, but methods do. And so that's why I say a lot of this is examining those systems, examining those processes. And so I don't know if you can speak to this from your level, Doc, but system-wide, when adults believe these myths, instead of adjusting those methods, what have you seen happen to kids?
Well, there's a couple of things to unpack with that. Number one, it's a saying that we have in education. I'm sure you've heard this, is that, you know, children don't leave their experiences at the front door when they walk into the classroom. If they're having a tough time at home, if they're having some challenges, you know, with family, with friends, if they had a hard time on the school bus on the way to school, if they're hungry, if they didn't sleep well, if they're scared, they bring that with them. And the truth is also, it is also true on the professional side. If you have a bias against, you know, certain groups and Black boys, brown, Latino boys, whatever it may be, immigrants, if you have a bias against those groups, teachers don't all of a sudden turn that off when they walk into the classroom. They bring those biases with them. And I think that's what we need to examine, you know, and it's easy to believe, oh, well, they're teachers. Teachers always, you know, love their students. They always do this. They always, you know, we think the most positive about teachers. And I'm an educator and I think very positive about teachers, but not all teachers have good intentions. Not all teachers know how to separate their lived experience with these young men from whatever their bias may be. They bring that with them. And so that's the first thing we need to do. Is kind of understand that. And another thing that we need to look at is who's teaching our young men. Right now, as of 2021, 80% of K-12, public K-12 teachers in America are white. 80%. And that's, I want to put a disclaimer with this. This is in no way saying that our Caucasian brothers and sisters don't love, cherish, care for, and do the best they can to educate our Black boys and young men. That is no way said at all. Some of our Caucasian brothers and sisters, our Latin brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters, bend over backwards, do everything they can. But research also says that students of color have better outcomes when there are teachers around them that they can look for and identify with from a ethnic standpoint, from a racial standpoint, even from a linguistic standpoint for our second language learners. It's just a proven fact that they do better if there's someone somewhere in their education journey that there's someone there they can latch on to and identify with. And so I think sometimes, a student can go through their entire education career, maybe have one Black teacher, if that. And as those of us who, we're a generation that in mass, we're the first generation that in mass are raising middle-class Black kids. And as a Mayor Turner used to say in Houston, we've all moved out to the lands. We moved out to Pearland, to Sugarland, to the Woodlands. We're all moving out to land to provide a better education. But our kids go to schools that it may not be any teacher in the school that looks like them. And part of it is a cultural aspect to it, and how we talk to each other, our language, this coding that we use that we just kind of it's just in the community. So if I walk down the hall and say, "Get your butt in the classroom, get out of here," I can say that to a young man, and it comes out differently than if somebody else says the exact same phrasing, because there's a cultural thing there. I've seen when young men they're just being hard-headed and won't do anything. The African-American teacher would come down the hall and kind of give them a look. And say something like, "I know you're not doing what I think you're doing." "Oh, yes, ma'am." And the boy that would not listen to anybody else, "Yes, ma'am," he stand up and go and do what he got to do. There are also cultural cues with that. The language we use, how we look, how our mamas look at us, how our daddy's tone of voice, those things like that translates across these education settings that would help improve outcomes. We had more people of more diverse backgrounds in the classrooms, in the principal's offices, in the superintendent seats that can actually speak to what needs to happen to get better outcomes for our young men. I know that was a lot, but it all kind of goes together.
Yeah, it goes together because I just want to go back to those biases, right? Because as we know, those myths come from those biases, but the dangerous part is that those myths don't stay opinion. Mm-hmm. As we've seen that this year, they become policy, mm-hmm. They become referrals, they become removals, and that data has shown that this is happening. It doesn't happen too evenly, right? And so that's why we're here tonight. Now I want to paint a picture that educators know so well. Black male student puts his head down, refuses to do work, talks back. The response usually is quick for that student. Kicked out of class, he get that office referral and a suspension. But this is where I say, hold up, shameless plug, one of the most shameless plug, and it wasn't blurry this time. All right, this is where I say the pencil ain't the problem. So Doc, in your educational experience, before consequences enter that room, what questions do you think the adults should be asking from that student?
Well, first and foremost, you have to know your students. You have to, and teachers have huge, especially like high school students. You may have 90 students, even lower grades. You may have 25, 30 students in class, depending on what school you're in. So it's tough, but you have to know your students and their situations. And to know the students in a situation, you have to, number one, you have to care for your students. I think everything comes down to you have to care for your students. And if you care for your students, you get to know a little bit about each of your students, and you can just tell what's going on with them. And I've been in education for as long as I have, you get to kind of know what's going on. If you pay attention, you see your student come and they have the same clothes on that they had yesterday. They don't look as clean. At lunchtime, they eat really, really fast because they're really, really hungry, because they may not be eating well at home. If they come late to school all the time, if they're angry all the time, you get to know what's going on with your students. And so when they come in, they got their head on the desk and they're being what we consider defiant, this is not his normal behavior, or what else is going on in their lives. Because again, students don't leave their circumstances at the front door when they come to the classroom. They come in with things. When I first started teaching, one of the things that really I had to learn to deal with is when I was in Compton, about 30% of the students in the school, the two schools I taught at in high school, were foster care, kinship care, and a group home. They did not live with family. Foster care, kinship care, and group home. So I have a kid come in, go to the back of the class, go to sleep, don't want to be bothered, and didn't do their homework. First thing I can say is, why didn't you do your homework? This is important. because I knew this student may have moved group homes at 11:30 the night before. They had to pack all their stuff in a trash bag, move to a new group home where they didn't know anybody. They're in there with a group of 6 other boys, brand new from who knows where. And now that's their new living situation. That's traumatic. So I always say, figure out what's going on. Sometimes leave them alone. Let them sleep. If you know your kid, you know this is not normal behavior, something's going on, leave them alone. Or if you know how to talk to them, pull them outside. Let them sit. And thinking back, when I was in school, I wasn't the best student. And my teacher would say, Patrick, come erase the boards for me. Or here, take this note to the front office to get me up out of the classroom, and I can walk to the front office, stop and give me a drink of water, hand a note, wait for somebody to write something back on the note, and walk it back to the classroom. That gave me a little break so I can reset. But I think it all comes with having to understand our students, having to actually care for our students, and having to get to know our students. Everything else comes secondary to that.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the biggest pieces for me, I also lived that life where, so the reason I wrote the book, and when we talk about that,
what book you talking about?
Feeling of belonging.
What book you talking about? What book?
Oh,
that book is blurry. It's blurry. There we go.
We got the. There we go.
There we go. I'm just wondering what book you're talking about.
And just in case y'all need it, I do got the workbook to go with it.
All right.
Don't play no games here, man. But the reasoning behind this book, 98% other than African-American staff, 76% African-American student, right? And so we got a lot of teachers who don't understand the culture. And what I noticed was the bar was starting to drop, right? Don't feel sorry for me, man. Like empathize with me, understand where I'm coming from, but give me what I need so that I could jump back in the game. Like you say, get you 5 minutes, man. You got 5 minutes. I need you to get up and kind of get this thing. Cause I know you might need to just put your head down for a few minutes because that's how we're going to make it. But then at the same time, I need you to come back because we got to get this work done because you still have to hold this standard and you still got to push through to get these grades. When your valedictory speech come out, this is things we're going to talk about. Because
you hit right on it with that. You hit right on it with that. Go ahead and finish. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That just hit me.
No. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say for me is tools don't fix drama, consequences don't replace connection. Because from that research, we know that exclusion doesn't correct their behavior, it only compounds that harm. But what you were saying, Doc?
So this notion of low expectation, and I think some very well-meaning people, and be surprised, I see this at the doctorate level for my students that are completing their doctorate work. It's, they probably can't operate at this level of academics. So we're just making it just a little easier for them to finish. And quite often I find myself on dissertation committees, truth be told. And this is the highest academic awards we can, where I will be the only African-American on the committee with an African-American student. And I'm like, no, this is not good enough. Where the other committee members would just kind of like, oh, well, this should be fine. We'll just let them do that. I'm like, no, this is not good enough. Because in the community, we know we have high standards. But outside of the community, their stereotype is, they just can't really do it at that level. So we'll just help them along. And I think sometimes in a well-meaning way, they kind of think they're helping us. But those of us in the community say, no, we keep our standards high. We're the best at everything we do. When we say this how you talk, the world talks like that. When we say this how you dance, the world dances like that. When we say this how you dress, the world dresses like that. Our culture moves the world. Our standards are high. And so I think that, it's a term, the benign neglect through low expectations or something like that. So I think that is one of the most dangerous things that we can do. People think they're helping us, and I'm glad you said that, but they're not by making the argument that we can't hit the standard and just kind of let us go by thinking they're helping us. But I just wanted to kind of point that out because I think they're very, very powerful.
Yeah, it was powerful. I just dealt with it last week. It's one student. I agree. It's one of our young babies. Got a hard home life, but that don't stop him from being held to this same bar, right? Because we got to get him out of there. And so we can't make him feel sorry for himself because nobody else outside of here is going to feel sorry for that young man. So we got to roll and give him the power. All right. So now this is where we slow down, and I want to let the data speak. And so I know that you had some data on suspension rates early onset, but I want to talk about that. And even in the book, I talk about the discipline disparities. Black students are roughly 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than their white peers. We talked about that. And Black boys have some of the highest suspension rates of any group nationwide.
We have the highest.
So, Doc, okay.
And the numbers with that is Black boys make about 15% of public school enrollment, but probably about 30% of those who suspended, expelled, or arrested in schools. So, and again, I go back to even the preschool, and I said this earlier, we make up about 19% of preschoolers, but about 45% of those Black boys, about 45% of those expelled from preschool. We make up 31% of those school-linked arrests by law enforcement. So, and again, it goes back to the first question we put on the table: is something wrong with our boys? And if the answer is no, then what's going on within the systems around to kind of have these outcomes?
Yeah, because when we talk about the title tonight, the misdiagnosis, Doc, this is happening before these babies can even read.
Yeah, this is K through 2 in alternative school, 5, 6, 7 years old in alternative school before they can even read.
And in your experience and expertise, what does early exclusion like this do to identity and academic objective?
Well, number one, it gets you in the mindset that school is a hostile place. And we don't love school, and I'm not going to love school because school doesn't love me. So when I go, I know I have to fight. I know I have to be defiant, what we label as defiant. I know I have to protect myself. And so if we're not in class, especially at early age, we're not warm and giggling and loving and all that kind of stuff like that. When we're standoffish, he has a problem. And that labeling goes because I'm a kindergarten teacher. I ate lunch with my friend. She teaches first grade. I'm in department meetings with people that are teaching second, third grade. I'm in school meetings with people teach 4th and 5th grade. We talked. Oh, you got Kendrick. I had him last year. Be careful of him. He's a bad one. And kind of it goes and goes and goes and goes.
Yeah.
Also, too, from an academic standpoint, from an academic outcome standpoint, the more you're suspended, you're missing instruction time. So I suspend you for 2 or 3 days. You leave, you come back. Now in algebra class, we moved on. Now you're lost. Now you failed the test. Now you're not doing well. I'm dumb, I'm stupid. And the teacher like, you're just failing. And so it kind of compounds and compounds and compounds and compounds.
I tell them, my kids be mad at me because you do something that's infraction worthy and I have to remove you from class, you're not going home. I ain't suspending nobody. I tell them, if I got to be at work, you got to be at work. So you're going to go sit inside this SAC classroom. I'm going to bring all your work from all your teachers, and this is going to be your out of class. But ain't no going home. You're not going to be at home eating, playing the game, watching the stories. None of that. I need you right here next to me. I had a kid right before the break. He was like, man, I'm just going to go home. I said, man, I don't feel safe with you going home for you, because we know it's anything to get out there. And if you hear, you're not getting into no trouble. And so I need to keep my eyes on you. And that kid, he didn't keep fighting to go home. He's like, all right, I'm gonna just chill. And so he ended up getting his work done for that day. But I think we have to do that because the research shows if a single suspension makes a student far more likely to drop out, right? Because that cycle had just started. I'm getting behind. So then discipline isn't neutral. It's almost predicted in a sense. Anything before we move on that one, Doc?
No, but in the next segment, I want to bring up stuff. I think we would be remiss if we just pointed at the school systems, and not talked about home and community and our responsibility with it, because we do have responsibility with it. But also, before we move to the next segment, I want to give a shout out to all the teachers who go above and beyond, who really bust their butts, who do so much at every level, from K-12 to community college or 4-year, that really, really do a good job. And I've been in education almost 30 years. 99.95% of teachers that I know will, stand in front of a train for their students, no matter who they are. So I don't want to paint a disparaging picture of teachers across the board. Again, I'm a board chair of a charter school whose teachers go over and above. So I just want to kind of put that disclaimer out there, and then talk about how much I respect, especially K-12 teachers, because I don't know how y'all do it. That's a whole lot of work y'all got.
Look, that's why I hope everybody on break. I hope y'all at choir rehearsal listen to this at choir rehearsal. And if you K-12, you know what that choir rehearsal is. Let's go. Like, you might not know about choir rehearsal.
I don't know about choir rehearsal.
Yeah, see, all the K-12, what they know. Every Friday we going to choir rehearsal. Ain't no happy house no more.
Man, we
kids.
We grown and going on. We don't do the K-12.
Yeah, see, y'all grown.
Nah,
See, yeah, we gotta label it different names. All that. All right. Well, and I think that is this next piece is a good place to really just talk about all that, but because I want to not talk too much about the kids, but more about the adults. And we went through this talking about the lowering the expectations because the child has the rough home life. That's not grace. That's not abandonment. And so I think we can I want to get into that adultification, because I think that starts also at the house. I did a show where we talked about the adultification of girls, and she said back in the day, we used to find a babysitter. We used to make sure. But now, if your baby 11, 10, you leaving the younger kids home with her, and now she got to play that role while she gone. Whereas me, I was the oldest in the house. And so a lot of the times I was taking care of brother and sister, right? And so now that adultification and that expectation just changed real fast for me. And I almost had to kind of be the fender and we talking age 12. I was out here driving and doing things for my brother and sister. So can you explain a little bit how that adult possession changes that outcome for Black boys, and even if it's through that home life?
Well, again, as you said, you know what, I'm going to pivot a little bit on the home life adultification, because I think what I see a lot of at my level, this community college and higher ed, is just the opposite. Many times in a home, they're treated like little boys for far too long. They're babied for far too long. And I think it's out of a sense of protection from many mothers, but they're just babied for far. And so they don't let them grow up, don't let them mature, protect them from any consequence that's out there. And so they're not prepared for life at the appropriate level when they're supposed to. They're not going through these rites of passages moments as a young man, because many times their mothers are protecting them and babying them so much. So I think it's just the opposite at home. So at the school, they're being treated as they're older, but they go home as a 14, 15, 16-year-old. They don't have any responsibilities because, their caretaker is doing every little thing for them as if they were a 5-year-old. So that's what I see a lot in our homes, in our communities, that, when we were growing up, used to go over here, and I was very fortunate. I have my father in my life. I have, both grandfathers and a whole mess of uncles. So I had always had men in my family, and we would get get-togethers and all that kind of stuff. And the men would say, "Get them boys out of there. Quit babying them boys. Send them out here with us." That doesn't happen as much and for a variety of reasons that we're not going to talk about tonight. And they say it doesn't happen as much. And so I think many times, it's just the opposite at home. We're not allowing them to grow and mature and be able to stand up straight and speak for themselves and advocate for themselves, and have responsibilities that are age appropriate. So I think that's kind of the bigger issue for us at home. So it may be an opposite. It's very detrimental, but it's an opposite.
Yeah. And for me, what came to my head was expectations shape the opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like you say, if I'm not really putting you through anything, giving you those rites of passage at the house, when it comes time for you to get those out in the real world, you're not prepared, you're not ready. And so then those opportunities dwindle simply because you haven't been exposed, right? And so almost like who gets challenged, who gets managed. Man, so much.
Yeah. And it goes to, accountability that, you didn't do your homework and there's no accountability at home. So then what can the teacher tell me about not doing my homework? Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff like that. So I think that is equally as dangerous because, and I would tell people, it's the school's job to educate our kids. It's our job as parents to make sure the school educates our kids. So we have to be on it. And that's holding the school accountable, but also holding our students accountable too. I mean, it has to be on both sides. And what I've seen in many cases is that at home, we're not holding our young men and boys accountable for what they have to do.
Oh, look, we got Brother Webb popped in on us, man. The boy say, root to the good brother. Hey, what it do that, brother? All right, man. So the last piece I want to just add to that is what I'm gonna put this book back out here again.
What's the name of that book?
You got pencils, the least of my words, man.
What's that book about?
Look, this book is about unveiling the hidden battles faced by minority boys in education. So what I want to say, if it's nothing else, is when adults lower the bar, they don't protect the kids, they limit them. And so if you want to know about that, you can just go to kttv.com, check in on the book, and I can come to your school, talk about it. We can do all those good pieces because this is what that was about. So that's why I said we got to do this because everything we're talking about now is in this book, but it's in the book of a story form. It's in the book of tips and pointers so that when you do see it, what do you do, right? When you don't know how to call that family because of the cultural differences, what do you do? How do you fix that? And so this is the charge. Before we close tonight, because we've been pushing, if you serve Black and brown boys, here's what I want you to remember. Diagnose before you discipline. Raise the environment and not the excuses. And so as we close this thing, based on the data and the practice, what's one shift adults can make tomorrow that will actually move the needle on the topic we discussed today?
Have a conversation with the young men in your circle. If you're a teacher, just plan some time and just pull them up, maybe one by one every so often. Have a conversation with them. Ask them how they're doing, what's going on. And I will say this, and I'm going to expand this out. Shamelessly, do that to the men in your lives. And I say this when I'm out and about. As men, no one really checks on us. No one asks us how we doing. Now, we're fortunate. We're in a fraternity that, has friendship is one of the highest, principles that we subscribe to. Our motto is friendship is essential to the soul. So we call and we check on each other. We ask, how are you doing, friend? By and large, we just in general, we don't get checked on. And that starts from when we're young men, young boys, all the way to we're grown men. So one thing to do different is have a conversation, age appropriate, of course. Ask them how they're doing. What's going on? What's their favorite color? What's their favorite video game? Learn something about them, and that will build a connection. So when something is going on, you will know when something is off. And you may get to like them.
I just want to say, stead on that. Who called Kendrick today and asked me if he drank some water? Hey, that was.
hey, It's a whole lot of people ain't gonna know what that means.
Hey, look, you gotta check on them. You gotta check on your people. So yeah, like,
I like that. I like that. I like that a lot.
Hey, you got to check on your people. So as we keep going, if tonight has challenged you in some form of phrase or fashion, you know where they can get this full framework about what we talked tonight. Do you know where they can go?
Well, what I got a suspicion. Somebody wrote a book, I thought.
Bam! Look, we got the book right here, man. We got the book. Got the book. Look, gosh, man, this is what's so important to us, man. So, Doc, any last words? And I know you wanted to talk about some things that was coming up for January, but any last words before we close this thing out?
Number one, this is a first of a conversation that you and I are going to have. We're going to do a deep dive in the elementary level, junior high school level, community college level separately, because I mean, a lot of people don't know 80% of the African Americans in higher education in the United States are at the community college level, not the four-year institutions. And then have a conversation about education outcomes at the four-year level, because I think this needs to be broken down for all levels so our audience can see the continuum. So I look forward in 2026 to continue this conversation. Secondly, as I mentioned, I'm the board chair of Elevate Collegiate Charter School, serves the historic third world community. We pre-K through fifth grade. We're having a fundraising gala Saturday, January 24th, 2026. Please look up Elevate Collegiate Charter School for more information about how to get your tickets. There's still sponsorship opportunities. You can buy single tickets. You can also buy a table for yourself. It's going to be a great time. Please buy some tickets. We would love to have you there. It's all the proceeds go to improving the schools, getting materials for our students so we can help increase education outcomes for our young pre-K through fifth grade students. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And for me, as we close this thing out, y'all, I agree. It's first of many conversations, and it is very important to break it down because the continuum is real, right? Me having these K through 2 students in, and just be able to reference that back to this conversation to actually see that and explain that in real time of what I'm dealing with, how we are already starting with the labeling. We're already starting with the self-fulfilling of these kids, and some of them just angry, right? And so you want to send me to this place now, I'm even angrier. Sometimes I'm on the bus with high school students because we all got to ride the same bus at the alternative school. And so it's really not a good thing for them to be starting so early. So being able to break all of those pieces down and have the audience to understand and see that continuum is very meaningful for me because that's why I like elementary. If we can catch them in between that K5, K6, then we got the world because around about 7th grade and up, they're looking for that approval from their friends. And so if they have not been taught how to pick the right crowd to go with the right groove, then that's when we get a lot of bad things in our hands. Yeah, that's it. Look at, all right. Hey, Vet. All right. Thank you for popping in, Vet. All right. I think that'll do it for us. This is KT and my co-host. There, you got to say your name, though.
Dr. PJ.
Dr. PJ. Look, we will see you all on the next episode of Education Unleashed. It's KT.
Happy Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. See you in 2026.
Root.
This is Darnell with Broadcast Houston.
This is Dr. Tamara Beckford.
Hey, this is Candace.
This is London Underwood.
This is Kirsten Bass with Inner City Greens, and you're watching.
Y'all are now tuned in to
KTTV.
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 KTTV.